Are you trying to dominate your fantasy football league? Do you want so many championship rings it's impossible to sign autographs? Well, crack open a beer, pour yourself a glass of bourbon, and settle in, because you've come to the right place. Welcome to Hammercast.
Welcome to the Hammercast Network, and on this special edition of Dynasty Debate, we are back at it going over prospects. So today, me and John here, we are going to be talking about two of our favorite quarterbacks in the draft, and that's Trey from North Dakota State and Zach Wilson from BYU. So I'm going to let John go first. He's going to be talking about why he likes Wilson, where he ranks Wilson. We're going to be showing you guys some highlight film of Wilson. He just had his pro day today. If you're watching this on a Friday on March 26th, if not, you've probably seen it. So why don't you tell me what you like about Zach, John?
Yeah, Zach Wilson is, I just think he's an amazing thrower of the football. His deep ball throw is amazing. More often than not, it's not caught, but it's still really, really good. His ability to throw different arm angles and different ball trajectories, like that play right there, he has the ball on a rope, piss missile right down the field shot. He also has the overarching, Russell Wilson deep ball rainbow throw. He has every tool in the bag from every different arm angle. I love his athleticism outside of the pocket. It's not, what he'll make a living doing, but he can definitely create plays. He can throw from awkward angles. He can throw on the run. He can create, and that's probably my favorite thing. I think he's an amazing thrower of the football, incredibly accurate, incredibly good passer, and on top of that, he can create plays. And that's my short version and my short argument for why he is so why I like him so much, why he's the clear number two in my opinion, and why in my opinion there is a drop off. I think it's Wilson and then everybody else. so that's my short answer of why I like him so much.
Well, you got Lawrence ahead of him, right? You got Lawrence at the top.
Yeah. Lawrence and Zach Wilson. Lawrence is, we know Lawrence, but
I thought we were gonna go super hot take today. No, we're gonna just a mini. Okay, yeah. I like Wilson. I like his arm talent, right? I think that's the number one thing. Like you said, he's got that arm talent. He got that ability to hit those far hash throws and backside on receivers, back shoulder throws. The dude can do those type of throws, and the reason why he has such good arm talent and the thing I like about him is that he can really release from anywhere. Today on his pro day, if you watched it, he did a play action. He rolled to his left through a crossbar. He spotted 60 yards.
Ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. His arm talent is ridiculous. I understand that. I think his mobility is okay. I wouldn't necessarily – I'm not going to say, he can do it, but he's good enough to move around in the pocket. He's got pretty good poise. If you watch that film, he does stand in there a little bit. Now, the one thing I will say is he's standing in there against some guys, teams. I'm not going to use the team, like who he played against as a barometer. I think that's kind of overrated. You're going to hear my argument for Lance. It's the same thing. I don't necessarily think that. I will say there's a couple weaknesses that I would like to point out. Now, I'm not going to say his size. Some people have said his size. I'm comfortable with his size. To me, it's his anticipation and timing on his throws. That will come with practice and with game throws in the NFL. But I will say that sometimes you can tell he waits till his receivers get into their break, and you can tell his footwork gets a little lazy. So he does throw off platform pretty well, but because he does that, sometimes he tends to throw off. His footwork can be lazy because he feels like his arm can get it there. And then you will see his anticipation and timing at the NFL level needs work, because where he's playing in BYU, most of those guys are going to be running open. He's going to see it. And that's the same thing kind of I have for Lance. That's a weakness too, is that anticipation and timing is going to take time. Will he be able to get it to the guys when they actually, before they're even open? I think that is the one weakness I have for him. But no, to me, he's my QB 3/4. So he's in that category. I don't see a tier break, to be honest. I feel like 2, 3, and 4 are very close together. So to me, it's about landing spot. And to me, it's about who's going to be on a good team that sees a vision for them. I think that if you anticipate him to go to the Jets at the second pick.
Yeah, we discussed this on the last video that we did just a minute ago. But yeah, I think it's a foregone conclusion, like signed, sealed. I think the draft starts at 3, but to be honest, but yeah.
Okay. I still think there's some question marks about if he goes there, but if he does go to the Jets, so let's talk about landing spot. He's got Mims there. He just got Corey Davis. I'm assuming they're going to get another running back that goes in there. Right now, they haven't signed anybody, but it may be some draft capital there and grab somebody. If they move on from Darnold, let's say he does go there. I don't hate the spot. I think with the new offense, with LaFleur in there, with Saleh in there, I think that's not a terrible spot because they're not going to ask him to do too much. Scheme running game, pound the ball, look for it, kind of use his skills. I actually don't hate it. I think that would be a pretty good landing spot for him. I just don't know if they take him or Fields. I still feel like they're going to take Fields. What is your opinion? I know this isn't about Fields, but what is your thing that you don't like about Fields?
Yeah, I look, I love the potential of Fields. I look at, I would say the difference for me is, to me, Wilson is ready to start day one. He's locked and loaded. You did mention, look, footwork definitely needs to be cleaned up. Anticipation, I get that. I thought he threw enough to cover guys more often down the sideline. So I definitely get what you're saying with that as well. But for me, Lance is a total. Is a total project for me. I mean, he has a big arm, but he's not incredibly accurate. His footwork and mechanics are all over the place. I did a video on my channel talking about like the way his footwork and a lot of different things, and kind of broke down what I think. Now the upside, yeah, I get the upside. The upside is Josh Allen. I don't think he's good as a passer as Josh Allen. I'll say that. Like, I think Josh Allen came out, had just a bigger arm in general, a better arm in general than a Trey Lance. But I would say, his release, he has this like very long and elongated release, gets back here a lot. He's going to have to clean that up. And honestly, at the pro day, it did seem like he tightened that up a little bit. So I'm not really worried about that. But again, I think his entire throwing mechanics is a project. I think he is an awesome athlete who has a big arm, but is a project that needs to be kind of cultivated into a quarterback. And I think I hope that's fair to say, because you look at him, what he had 279 pass attempts, not completions, attempts at in the 2019 season, which is really his only big season. I don't count that one weird game against Arkansas State, because like I don't know, like that's a tough situation. I didn't look at that game. I didn't watch that game. I know a lot of people didn't like it, but that didn't go into my grade. I watched 2019, but 279 pass attempts versus, you look at like a Mac Jones played games this past year, had 402. Well, Trey Lance played 16 games, had 279. So he didn't throw the ball a lot. So like he's a raw prospect, ran at the first sign of trouble, and I think he needs work from that aspect. I love the upside. The upside's awesome, but I see him as a big project and as a huge projection. I think that's the best way I would put it.
All right, let me tell you why you're wrong. So let's get into Lance. I mean, I love his measurements. So we'll watch the film. There's a lot of things that you got to understand about Lance. I love his – what I call it is like an athletical, his athletic functionalism. So how does he move around in the pocket? I think guys have to have that. And I think Wilson has it too. So, but Lance does have it. He can get out there. He can create time. He can create space. And yeah, I mean, this play, you'll see that he runs, but I'm pretty sure that was a design run. When you look at the power run, when you look at North Dakota State's power run scheme, I think that they ask him to do a lot of different things. And one is they're going to have him run the ball. I mean, he had over 1,100 yards rushing that year that he went 16-0 and they won a national title. Now, as far as his throws go, I think timing, like I said, timing is key for him. I think that's something he's going to be working on. I like his platform. I think he has a strong arm too. Like for me, I feel like his arm strength is one of his measurables, his athleticism, and his ability to come play off script. You'll watch this. I mean, that should have been a sack, right? If that's Mac Jones just died back there.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
If that's Wilson, maybe. But, I mean, Lance is the type of guy, when you look at him, I think that he has that ability, and I think he has that arm strength. I love his poise. I love his actually deep ball. Actually, it's not terrible. He can work on his middle game, his intermediate range, but I think that he brings something to fantasy that we like. Now, if we're talking about an NFL-ready quarterback, sure, I'll look at it from that perspective and say, yeah, he's going to need some work. But we all want that cheat code, the Konami code guy. Lance fits that mold. But he needs a vision. Someone needs to take him that has a vision for him. So that's why I want him to go to the Panthers. I feel like that's the spot, because I think Joe Brady there, Matt Rule, those guys, RPOs, they has the weapons. He'll have more. He'll have McCaffrey. And he could sit behind Teddy for another year. I mean, he probably wouldn't even sit by him for another year, to be honest. But he'd be able to kind of learn from someone like Joe Brady. Look what he did with Burrow. Look, he even made Teddy into something that I didn't think Teddy was. I think he's a hell of a decision maker. The one thing, that was interesting that I was listening to recently, they talked about when Carson Wentz came out. So let's forget about the Carson Wentz of recently. But when he first came out of North Dakota State, Wentz got praised because of how good North Dakota State's offense was and how he had to go through all the reads. And they actually run like an NFL-level read system and all that stuff. And then all of a sudden now we've heard Lance say, oh, well, he needs time because he's a one-read person. It's the same damn offense. They're doing the same thing as Wentz. And it's like, well, wait a minute. And he didn't throw a pick. He didn't throw one interception in 2019. And then he did throw in that stupid exhibition game, but he was pressing. He was trying to do more than he probably needed to do that game. So I love his decision making. And when you watch his film, he does go through the progressions. Like he might now. I heard this argument too. Well, all his guys are wide open. That's not his damn fault. Like at a certain point, like that is the scheme, right?
That's accurate either. I'll be honest with you. But yeah, no, I get it. I will 100% say I've never once said anything about like he did play in a pro style scheme. I will say the one thing about reading the field that I had an issue with is I didn't think he recognized the blitz when it was coming. There was I think it was like Northwestern, it was the championship game. They sent 5 the entire game. And maybe it's just the coaching staff. Maybe, you could blame it on a lot of things. But it looked like Trey Lance was shocked every single time they rushed the nickel off the edge. Every single time. That bugged me a little bit. Again, that's a minor thing that and let's be clear. Everything that I have a negative about are minor things that can fix. Like I did a whole video on it talking about like, okay, here's the negatives, but the raw potential are things you can't teach, and those are the things that are awesome. And the things that do need to be taught, the things that he needs work with, they're fixable. Like he's an athlete. He can figure out his footwork. He's an athlete. He can adjust his arm angle, and he's still gonna have a great arm. All of those things. I said arm angle, his release in general. I 100% agree. He goes to Carolina, I would be incredibly excited about that. And to be fair, like I do see. I won't say a higher upside, but I do see a better fantasy upside component because he's going to have a rushing component. Wherever he goes, he will be running the ball 5 to 10 times a game, almost like he's going to have 5 to 10 times where it's a scripted run or at least an RPO or something where he's getting out at space because that's what he is. I mean, that's what he can do. I mean, so I absolutely agree with a lot of what you're saying. I do look at. I will stand by the fact that Wilson to me is a complete player and a complete like ready to start day one guy that I have very few questions about. And you're absolutely right. You mentioned some minor issues, but overall, like I would say, competition level, both lesser competition, but I would say both elevated their team. So I think that's kind of a wash as far as like you can say something about each side, but I think they both deserve to be praised for raising the team in general. Mm-hmm. And you can say whatever you want about talent around them. I don't care. I think it's harder to judge Mac Jones than it is to judge Zach Wilson and Trey Lance. Mac Jones had everything around him. That's harder for me to grade than it is for me to grade these guys, like in my personal opinion. So yeah, overall, I just wanted to put that out there. I'll let you keep going.
No, you're right. I mean, and I love that you brought that up because I was going to bring it up too. Hey, you know what? Yeah, he did play against lesser talent, but you know what? Do you know any of his receivers? Do you know any of his running backs? Because they're not going to play. So now you give him, give him DJ Moore, give him McCaffrey, give him guys like that, and you're going to be like, oh wow, he's pretty talented. Yeah, no shit. Like I just don't understand people sometimes when it's like, well, he had less talent. Yeah, but he also had to produce with less talent. He didn't have Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, Mechie, Najee Harris, all these different guys. And so he did elevate themselves. There's nothing they could do. They did what they were supposed to do. They produced high numbers against talent that wasn't there, but it's not like we're talking about guys that didn't produce. So I think that production thing, some people use that. You can always pigeonhole stats. I think it's crap. But, the one reason why I like Lance, and it's because I'm a coach, but it's also just because I love this. I love intangibles and toughness. And what I see from him is that he has that it factor. It's hard to measure. You can't measure it on film. He has that something. So when you're looking at him from a perspective, I think he wants to be great. He's been working with his quarterback coach right now. They've been going through reads, reading defenses, going through all this stuff. They've been in a boot camp literally for this entire year because he had to leave because of COVID. So like the games played thing, I know there's a metric out there. They like to have their quarterbacks play 27 games or more. Yeah. Well, you know what? That's not Lance's fault that COVID knocked out his season. He still did play more, almost more than some, when you're looking at what he played, games played about 18, 19. And again, he played 16 in a year. So he has that production. I love that. I will say, but I mean, the lack of reps, I think, is a real thing. He's got to learn. And that's where his mechanics, and I like you brought up your mechanics. I think he can rush his mechanics sometimes. And so when you watch him on rollouts, he rushes his footwork and as that prolonged release is a big thing because especially even when he drops back, I think but he's tightening it up, right? That's what we like to see. The coaching is going to get him out of there. I mean, I remember when I was listening to I watched the Chiefs documentary, and now no way am I comparing to Mahomes, but they talked about Mahomes the first year, like the first week of practice, guys are like, we can't believe we drafted this guy in the first round because he didn't have mechanics. he didn't know how to under center. Cliff Kingsbury, whatever this says about him as a coach, they didn't get him prepared for the NFL. I think we're going to see a little bit of that with Lance. It's going to take him some time. And he sat behind Alex Smith, and then he was, Mahomes is Mahomes. I could definitely see something like that with Lance, right? Like, that is key. I'm just higher on Lance because I think that his upside with what he is, it's like that analogy we kind of worked on earlier. I've said it before. You got two guys that run to the first base and they get there at the exact same time. One with bad form, one with good form. I'm taking the bad form because I can transfer him and make him faster, and he'll get there first. I believe that with Lance. He's got some consistency issues. He's got with his mechanics. If we fix that, then his upside gets higher. That's why he's my QB2. I know that's really high for a lot of people. But hey, remember, there's people out there that Herbert has QB2 and everybody thought he was an idiot. Now people are saying he's QB1, right? So I think there is that. I like Wilson, though. I think Wilson can step in and lead a team faster than Lance. But overall, if I'm taking somebody, I want Lance.
I respect that. I do respect that. I still am going to stick with Wilson as far as just I don't see a major flaw to his game, and I can only see him improving on that. I like the baseball metaphor, and I think that's a really good one, honestly. I agree with it more often than not. It was a big reason why I'm big on Tua, I last year. So I absolutely get what you're saying. I look at Wilson's upside as a little bit higher, and just in general, or at least the first 3 years, I certainly would say is significantly higher. If I've mentioned it, and I don't love this comp because, again, I do think Josh Allen's arm is a little bit better than Trey Lance's, but Trey Lance could be Josh Allen. Like that would make sense to me as far as like 3 years from now, 3.5. Yeah, this was his fourth year or third year in the league? Fourth year. We could be looking at Trey Lance the same way we were looking at Josh Allen this year. I could see that. I look at Zach Wilson as a guy who could be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL in the next 2 or 3 years. I see that upside for him as well. I think there's a lot of upside for both these guys, and then it just depends on what happens. I kind of hate these going to the Jets because I'm a Dolphins fan. I don't want to see that, and we've seen the Jets squander talent before, so I'm a little nervous about that as well. But new regime, we'll see what happens. I'm incredibly excited for both these guys. I don't want it to make it sound like I don't like Lance. I really do. I think Lance is probably my fourth. But I would say Lance and Fields are close for me. Like, they're really close, and I maybe people would disagree with that and think Fields deserves to be much higher or whatever. But for me, it is a drop off. I think 1 and 2 are set in stone for me. Drop off to 3 and 4, and I would let people argue on 3 and 4, but I would probably still take Fields. But honestly, I get the upside for Lance, and I could really see myself in there. And then it's after that, I think Mac Jones is probably 5. Then you get into the Kellen Mond thing. I'm kind of high on the old Georgia. I'm blanking on his name so bad right now, but the old Georgia quarterback. I'm blanking bad, whatever, it doesn't matter. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I love that conversation. That was a good one. I think you explained it really well. Hopefully I didn't stutter over my words too bad and explained why I like Wilson.
I think they're very close. I think both of them are close. And I think, with Josh Allen, this is his 3rd year. He broke out, right? We could see something like that very, very simple with Lance, too. I think there's a misconception that Lance is going to be – he has to sit. I think he could sit for a little bit in half the season, but he's talented enough in terms of if Jalen Hurts could come out and these other guys can come out, he has enough talent to do that. But we'll see. Let us know in the comment section below. Who do you believe in? You want Lance? You want Wilson long term? Remember, if you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, tell us what you think. Let us know who won this one. So, John, thanks for coming on.
Did you get all that? If not, make sure you head over to hammercast.com. Subscribe, and join the Hammer Nation. Until next time, keep grinding.